Okay. Are you able to see the PPT now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Okay, so the lab that I worked in my PhD mainly focused on two of the cancers. One was a solid
But
glioblastoma brain
second
tumor.
slide is not glioblastoma overview. It's not, nothing is in this slide.
Yeah, I know, it will
Okay,
come.
okay.
So the lab worked with two cancer, one solid and one liquid cancer. One leukemia was the liquid cancer, solid cancer was glioblastoma. Now, glioblastoma is a kind of glioma, which is like the tumor of glial cells. These are the supporting cells of the brain, which are star shaped, so they are called astrocytes. And the tumor of these astrocytes are called gliomas. And these gliomas, I will not go into the very detail into the classification of these gliomas, but based on their pathophysiological features, they are divided by WHO into 4 grades. And I basically uh, worked with the grade 4 glioma, which is called as glioblastoma. Just wanted to if I can make a pointer.
पॉइंटर जब फुल स्लाइड करोगे तो पॉइंटर दिखेगा. फुल स्लाइड करो पहले आप. यस, अब लेफ्ट कॉर्नर में आप देखिए, उसको क्लिक करेंगे ना इधर. हाँ, इधर दिख रहा है ना. हाँ,
Okay. So basically I focused on the grade 4 glioblastoma. Now the grade 4 glioblastoma, to talk about it a little bit, it is the most common form, most common amongst all the malignant gliomas. It is constitutes about 46%, and so it is most lethal form of glioma because the median survival is only 15 months after the diagnosis of the glioblastoma. The patient is given a treatment regime, and even after the treatment regime, the median survival of a patient is just 15 months. And it is most aggressive because the margin of this tumor is so invasive that the surgeons are not able to completely resect out the tumor, and therefore it invades into the eloquent parts of the brains, and therefore the surgery is not possible eventually. So the treatment regime that is now currently available for this kind of tumor is maximal surgical resection, your radiotherapy, and the chemotherapy with alkylating agents like temozolomide. But even after these treatment regimes, the 5-year survival rate of glioblastoma is just even less than 10%. So it's really bad. The condition of the patients having glioblastomas are really bad, and this the poor prognosis of this tumor is due to the high propensity of the tumor to recur back in almost 100% of the cases, and in almost 90% of the cases, this tumor recurs back in its original tumor location, its primary tumor location. And this is thought to be because since the margin is so invasive and the surgeons are not able to completely resect out the tumor, the remaining radio resistant residual cells that remain back after the radio, chemo, and the surgery recur back, giving to the recurrent tumor at the primary tumor location. So basically it is so for my focus of the PhD was to understand this recurrent population, how different it is from the parent population, and to see if we can find some novel therapeutic targets that could inhibit the growth or the recurrence of this disease. So to do that, we had a very unique and eloquent in vitro cellular model that was made up of patient samples as well as glioblastoma cell lines. I will take some time to explain this model. What we used to do is we used to get the fresh tumor samples from the patients. Then we used to make these tumor sample into a single cell suspension and then establish them into primary GBM cultures. These primary GBM cultures were termed as parent population. And when this parent population was exposed to a lethal dose of radiation such that 90% of them died, the 10% population that remained here were called as the residual radio-resistant population. Now, this was a very interesting population in terms that they showed cell-to-cell homotypic cell-cell fusion and form multinucleated giant cells. They were non-proliferative in nature, and they showed all the senescent phenotypes, like they had beta-galactosidase positivity or senescent markers. They showed senescence, but after a phase of non-proliferative phase, eventually after a while, like after 15 to 20 days, these non-proliferative cells again starts to proliferate and then form a population called recurrent population. Now, my aim was to understand the difference between the recurrent and the primary population. So what I did was we had a parent and the recurrent population in a cohort of 2 GBM cell lines and 2 patient samples. We did a transcriptome of parent versus recurrent of these 2 cell lines and 2 patient samples, and compiled a list of upregulated genes that were upregulated in recurrent populations, and did a pathway analysis. Like we did some bioinformatic analysis and tried to see which pathway these upregulated genes fall into. And we did the same for proteomics. Like we did the proteomics for 1 GBM cell line and figured out the upregulated proteins in the recurrent population and did a pathway analysis of these upregulated proteins. And we saw that the common pathway that was upregulated in the recurrent samples in the transcriptome was focal adhesion pathway, as in transcriptome as well as in proteome. The common pathway that came up to be upregulated was focal adhesion pathway. Now, this pathway is the pathway required by the cells to form attachment to the ECM around it and move forward. So this is the major pathway involved in the invasion and migration of the cells when it is in a in vivo condition. So this actually focused my interest to the ECM biology. Now, for a long time, people have been observing that the first diagnostic character of a cancer is that it forms a palpable tumor. That means you can physically feel that the stiffness of the tumor is different than the stiffness of a normal tissue. So for long time, we knew that the tumor cells have the capacity to modulate their ECM, and therefore people were trying to understand what biochemical signals are differentially regulated in the cancer cells as compared to that of the normal cells. But nowadays, recently, it is coming into focus that not just the biochemical cues that the cells receives from its extracellular matrix are important, but also the biophysical cues, the stiffness of the ECM is equally important for a cell to behave differently or to determine the cell fate. So basically, nowadays people are trying to understand how a cell behaves when it is cultured on a soft environment as compared to that of a stiff environment. So I like to show the this effect of the substrate stiffness with respect to cancer by using a very well-known uh, picture of the hallmarks of cancer. That was the pioneering study that was made in cancer, determining the hallmarks of cancer. I am sure that you guys are very familiar with this picture. And here we can see the different hallmarks of cancer, which determine the different characteristic that a cancer has. Amongst these different characteristics, I will now focus or highlight on the of hallmarks that are influenced by the ECM stiffness. Now we know that the cells, cancer cells, when they proliferate uncontrollably, normal cells, when they proliferate uncontrollably, they turn into a cancerous cells. So it has been now established that by varying the ECM stiffness also affects the proliferation of a cell. The higher, in some cancers, people have shown that higher the cell stiffness, higher the ECM stiffness, more is the proliferation. Then people have also shown that the ECM stiffness, on varying the ECM stiffness, the vasculature of the tumor also varies. The invasion and migration is also enhanced if the ECM stiffness is increased. The immune cells, if there is a stiff ECM, the immune cells are not able to reach the tumor, and therefore there is the tumor. This is how the cells avoid the immune destruction of the tumor cells. And the ECM stiffness is also known to affect the stem cell differentiation and stemness properties. And also, last but not the least, it is now very recent paper that has come saying that the ECM stiffness also has an effect, or has a part to play in the senescent behavior of cancer cells. So basically, as you know, that this ECM mechanobiology is now an emerging field in the cancer biology, and has shown to have effect in various arms of the cancer cancer features. And people are now trying to understand in depth what is the exact mechanism by which this is happening, and what are the molecular players, if we could target these mechano sensors, or if we could find some therapeutic sense out of this. So I will explain what my part is in this field. My PhD work focused on this part. We see that from normal cells to cancerous lesion, there are steps through which the ECM is gradually increasing, and at the end step where the cancerous lesion is formed, the stiff ECM promotes all the malignant properties, malignant features like proliferation, invasion, angiogenesis, and so on and so forth. Whereas my postdoc research focuses on this part of the cancer development, where there are pre-tumorigenic lesions, but there is ECM modulation, so that the ECM is stiff enough. But we are trying to figure out how we can stop it at this level so that it doesn't go here, using the mechanosensors or mechanobiology, if it is possible to do that. So my postdoc study focuses on this part, but the talk that I'm going to give today focuses on this part. So moving ahead, as I said, my work was with glioblastomas, which is the brain tumors. And the stiffness of the brain is the softest organ of the body, and has a stiffness of 0.5 kilopascals. Now, pascals, for the future references, is a unit of stiffness. Okay. Now, we wanted to see what happens to the cells if they are grown at the physiological stiffness of 0.5 kilopascals. And we know that when the cells when the brain tumor is formed, the stiffness of the brain changes to around 10 kilopascals. So we decided on using these two stiffnesses, the 0.5 and 10 kilopascals. So we took the help of polyacrylamide gels and varied the substrate stiffness depending on the concentration of polyacrylamide gels, and coated these gels with ECM proteins like collagen. And then when the cells were seeded on these soft and stiff substrate, we tried to figure out what the differences these cells have. Now we, as mentioned here, we seeded the parent and the recurrent population that were obtained from the in vitro model that I explained. The parent and the recurrent GBM populations were seeded on soft and stiff substrate 0.5 and 10 kilopascal. And then the first thing that was observed was that between parent and the recurrent cells, the morphology was different when they were grown on softer substrate. Where the parent cell showed only circular morphology, the recurrent population showed two distinct morphologies, where 50% of the population were circular and 50% of the population were elongated. Now we used ImageJ software to quantify the cell surface area of these cells on this substrate, and then we found that the recurrent population had higher cell surface area as compared to that of the parent population, and this difference was unique only to soft substrate and not to the stiff substrate. Now, between the recurrent population on soft substrate, we showed that there are indeed two distinct population with two distinct cell surface area. One is the elongated morphology and one is the circular morphology. We then tried to find out if there is a proliferation difference between the parent and the recurrent population when they were seeded on soft substrate. And for that, we did a immunostaining of Ki67 protein. Now, Ki67 is a gold standard marker for proliferation. And we did a immunohistochemistry to see if the cells expressed this Ki67 protein, and we saw that the recurrent cell had higher positive Ki67 positive cells, and amongst the recurrent population also, the elongated population had more Ki67 staining, indicating that the recurrent population were more proliferative on the softer substrate as compared to that of the parent substrate. We also did this experiment on the stiff substrate and found out that there was no difference seen between the parent and the recurrent population, and the difference between the proliferation was uniquely seen on the softer substrate. Now, since the in vitro condition, we saw that the proliferation was more of the recurrent population. We wanted to see if this was true in the in vivo population or in vivo settings also. So for that, what we did was, I didn't do what is commonly done is the luciferase gene from the firefly is cloned into a plasmid, and this expression plasmid is then transfected into the cells of interest. So I didn't do this cloning. We ordered the luciferase gene cloned in a PLL plasmid, and then we transfected our GBM parent cells with these luciferase enzyme gene, and then made parent and recurrent population out of these. These parent and the luciferase tag parent and the recurrent populations were then injected orthotopically into the bregma of the mice, and then the tumor formation was observed for 20 days, and along these 20 days at interval of 2 days each, the tumor growth was observed. when we had to observe the tumor growth, the mice were given an intraperitoneal injection of the luciferin substrate. This substrate is generally the luciferase enzyme converts this substrate with the help of oxygen into oxyluciferin, and when this oxyluciferin is excited by gamma rays, it emits the bioluminescence, which is captured by a very sophisticated BLI imaging machine. Now this is what we did at day 4. As I said, at particular time points, we imaged these mice after injecting them in the bregma or the brain of the mice, and then we calculated the tumor volume along the different time intervals. So we saw that when the cells were injected with the parent cells grown on plastic petri dishes, and the recurrent cells grown on plastic petri dishes, we saw that the tumorigenic or the tumor volume did not differ significantly between them. But when you grow them on soft substrate, the difference between the tumorigenicity of the parent population and the recurrent population was significantly observed. Now, this was in par with what we had seen in vitro condition, where the recurrent population showed higher proliferation when grown on softer substrate specifically and not on stiffer substrate. So this was also observed in vivo condition, which made our claim stronger that the difference between the proliferation of parent and the recurrent population is indeed different and only captured when they were grown on softer substrate. So since we had this brain, after the endpoint of the BLI imaging, the brains harboring these tumors were excised out, and then they were measured for their stiffness. Now we used rheometer. Now this is a very I am not an expert of this technique, but I will try to explain to you the basic mechanism of this machine, how it tries to measure the stiffness. Now the brain is kept on this probe, and then this probe comes down and then exerts a particular force, and this machine measures the amount of force required to deform the material kept here. So for example, if you keep a boiled chickpea, a boiled chana over here, the force required to deform the boiled chickpea will be less. But if you keep a dried chickpea here, the force required to deform that dried chickpea will be more. So this is what this measure, the force required by the material to sustain the deformity is measured by the rheometer. And by using this rheometer, we saw that amongst all the brains that harbored the tumor from the 0.5 kPa recurrent cells had the highest stiffness. That means that the recurrent cells that were grown on softer substrate are modulating their ECM such that they are making the brain stiffer. So since this indicated that the recurrent population are differentially modulating their ECM as compared to the other population, we then cherry picked some of the ECM proteins that are commonly found in the brain, and then did a RT-qPCR, and then found that the expression of collagen 4A, which is the major ECM protein in brain, was uniquely upregulated in the recurrent cells that were grown on softer substrate. Also, the expression of MMP2 and MMP9, which are the enzymes required to degrade the collagen 4A, was also upregulated in these 0.5 kPa recurrent cells. Now, this was interesting to us because MMPs are the ones required for the cell invasion phenotype. And we also saw that at not just at the RNA level, but at the protein level also. We did an immunohistochemistry of the mice brains that harbored the tumor from parent and recurrent cells that were grown on plastic and soft substrate, as well as we also did an immunohistochemistry of MMP2 and MMP9 in the primary patient biopsies as well as the recurrent patient biopsies. And we found that the expression of MMP2 and 9 were upregulated in all the three samples populations. Now, the interesting thing about MMP is, even though the expression is higher, it does not mean that it is active. So the activity of MMP is more important than the expression. So to check the activity of MMP, MMPs are generally the enzymes required to cleave the collagen, and so that the cells can invade and make their way into the ECM. So we did, to check the activity of MMPs, since they are collagenase enzymes, we did a in situ zymography assay in which the cells are seeded on a glass, on a substrate on a slide. Here in this case, we grew them on soft and stiff substrate, and then we give them collagen that is tagged with luciferin. And if your cells contain protease enzymes like MMP2 and MMP9, they will cleave this collagen bond, and the luciferin will be excreted out, which can be captured by confocal microscopy. So here we can see that when the parent and the recurrent cells were grown on soft substrate, first thing to notice is all the cells are circular in morphology, whereas in the recurrent population you can see the elongated morphologies. So in the elongated morphologies, you can see this green luminescence being captured by the confocal microscopy, indicating that there is activity of MMP in the recurrent population, whereas in the parent population, you do not see any active MMPs present. So this indicated that this actually triggered us to see if, since there are more MMPs, there is more collagen expression, whether the cells are more invasive in their phenotype. So we did a Boyden chamber assay where this is called a Boyden chamber. Here we have a serum-free media, and here we have media with serum. So it creates a chemotaxis coefficient. And when you see the cells in this chamber, the cells try to move towards the FBS containing media, the serum containing media, because there are more nutrients here. But there is the porous membrane in between. So for the cells to reach the media rich in nutrients, these cells have to pass through the spores, and these cells having the invasive ability only can pass through the spores. So we see that if these cells have invasive capacity, these cells will pass through this membrane and will be attached in the lower side of the membrane. When we incubate these cells for 24 hours, and after 24 hours we remove the upper chamber cells and then stain the cells that are remaining on the lower part of the membrane. And here we see that as compared to parent, the recurrent cells are more invasive in nature. More number of cells are able to cross the porous nature of the membrane and have reached the bottom part. But when you okay, I hope I'm audible to everyone. And
yes, you're audible.
Okay. So when you grow them on plastic, the recurrents are more invasive indeed. But when you grow them on softer substrate, this invasive ability is all the more augmented. And you can see this in quantified here, that the recurrent cells are all the more invasive, even more than the cells that are grown on plastic. So Since they were more invasive, we also wanted to see if they have higher velocity also. For that, we just did we just observed or captured the cells, live cell. We did a live cell imaging of these cells and captured the trajectory of these cells. And as you can see here, the elongated cells are moving more as compared to the circular ones, which are just moving around. They're not going anywhere. There's no directionality in their movement, and there is no displacement also. So we measured this displacement, and we saw that the recurrent population, it has higher velocity as compared to that of the parent population. And again, this property was also unique on the softer substrate and not on any other substrate, on the stiffer substrate. And amongst the recurrent population also, we decoupled the velocity of the elongated versus the circular morphology, and we saw that the higher velocity is mainly because of the elongated morphology and not because of the circular morphology. So, taking together all this data that I have explained till now, we know now that the between parent and recurrent glioblastomas, when recurrent glioblastomas have differential ECM remodeling capacity, that they have higher collagen expression, higher MMPs expression, and they form tighter, stiffer, aggressive tumors. Aggressive in the sense that they are more tumorigenic in nature, they are more invasive, they are more migratory, they are more proliferative in nature. And this aggressiveness was only captured when you grew them on the soft substrate, which is a physiological stiffness of a brain. When you grow them on plastic surfaces, like generally what people are doing now, these differences are how do you say, are masked and are not captured, and we tend to miss out on these subtle differences that are there only because we are not culturing them in on the substrate stiffness that the cell experiences when it is inside a body. So therefore this actually study, the main focus of this study was to bring in the interest of the people, to show the scientific community that it is important to grow them in the physiological stiffness that a cells experience in an in situ condition. And growing them on plastic petri dishes by growing them on plastic petri dishes, we can miss out on a lot of information that may be critical in finding novel therapeutic targets. So what I did was, in order to explore this differential mechano-responsive properties of the recurrent population, recurrent glioblastoma population, and find novel therapeutic targets for recurrent population, I did a transcriptomic analysis of the upregulated or deregulated genes of parent versus the recurrent population, which were grown on plastic as well as the softer substrate. So here are the here are the upregulated genes of the recurrent population that were grown on softer substrate, and these are the upregulated genes of the recurrent population grown on plastic surface. So we are interested in the upregulated genes that are uniquely upregulated on the softer substrate and not on the plastic. So when we did a Venn diagram, we found that there are 8 such genes that are there are 21 such genes that are upregulated only on in the recurrent population when they are grown on softer substrate. The 8 common genes that are upregulated on plastic as well as soft substrate, we are not interested in. We are interested in this 21 genes, and among these 21 genes, the most upregulated gene that came up was PLECA7. Now, PLECA7 is a tight junction protein, thus indicating that it is involved in mechanoresponsiveness. And we thought of seeing if this could be of interest, if this could be a novel therapeutic target for recurrent population. So first thing that we did was to validate our transcriptomic results at RNA level and see if indeed the expression of pleca7 is upregulated when they in the recurrent population grown on softer substrate. So we see that the recurrent cells grown on softer substrate had higher RNA expression of pleca7. We also validated it at the protein level, where we see that the pleca7 is upregulated in the recurrent population in patient samples also. And we wanted to see what happens if we knock down this gene, and we saw that on knocking down of pleca7 with siRNAs, the invasion was going down. The invasive property was going down. We did a cell survival assay called MTT assay, where we see that the cell survival was also going down, irrespective of whether they were grown on plastic or 0.5 kPa. We know that we see that the cell survival is going down in both parent as well as the recurrent samples, indicating that this could be a novel therapeutic target. More extensive studies are required to say that this indeed is affecting the survival of the cells in vivo conditions, no doubt, but this could be a potential target which we need to study more. And the importance of this study is that even in the cells that were grown on plastic, pleca7 was identified, but this was not coming as upregulated, because when you grow them on plastic, the mechano signals that a cell gets from a plastic surfaces are so saturated that these genes that are responsible that may be potential targets are missed out if you grow them on plastic surface. But whereas if you grow them on physiological surface, many such genes are captured, and these other genes are also potential targets that can be studied further, and their role in aggressiveness of tumor or cell survival can be studied. But we were only able to capture these genes by culturing them on physiological stiffness and not on plastic surface. So basically, the summary of this presentation was that parent and recurrent GBM cells showed different morphologies on the brain-like soft substrate. The cell migration, invasion, proliferation, and tumorigenicity of the recurrent GBM cell is augmented when they grow on softer substrate. The recurrent GBM cells showed heightened expression and activity of the ECM remodeling proteins like MMP2 and 9. And we also demonstrated this part was not shown in the PPT, but we also see that when you inhibit EGFR by afatinib, which is the clinically approved drug for which is in clinical trials for glioblastoma, also reversed the invasive and migratory phenotype, but it did not have any significant chemosensitivity effect on the recurrent population. And in clinical trials also, we see that the afatinib is not able to show a positive effect on the prognosis of the patient, and thus we were able to mirror the clinical scenario with EGFR targeting therapies that fail to improve the patient survival using this model that we are using. And the total RNA-seq identified pleca7 as a potential mechanoresponsive target specific for recurrent GBM. Now, future prospect is to understand the mechanism behind how pleca7 is able to affect the aggressiveness of recurrent GBM, and this has been followed up further in the lab, and people are doing experiments to prove and to find out what exactly is the downstream mechanism to pleca7. This study has been published in Matrix Biology, and if you want to read in detail in further, you can always refer to my paper. And that's it for me. Thank you. I hope